Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Hey, it's Friday, everyone, and so we bring you FOMO Friday. We don't want to have that fear of missing out, so we bring you the stories of the week that you should know about. Of course, let's get right into it. The big story of the week was the election. Yes, every November 4th, we have an election here in the United States, and yes, it was not a big general election like something, along the lines of a presidential election or anything like that. But there was definitely some really interesting results. So from a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes this very first one, and Zoran Mamdani, the radical socialist startup whose primary victory shocked the nation, will be the next mayor of New York City. Mamdani, an immigrant from Uganda who moved to Queens as a child, captivated the electorate with his youthful energy, his unabashed leftism, and promise to make everything from city buses to childcare free to New Yorkers. I put free in air quotes here. Okay, a half hour after polls closed, just over 60% of the votes had been counted, and Mamdani was leading with 49.6% of the votes. He actually won by just a little bit larger than that. But anyway, independent candidate and former New York State governor Andrew Cuomo trailed with just over 41%, and Curtis Sliwa, a Republican candidate and founder of the Guardian Angels, by the way, he captured around 8% of the vote, and none of this was surprising. The Real Clear polling average of polls had Mamdani leading former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, the independent candidate, as I said, by more than 14 points on the evening of the election. Mamdani, a one-term assemblyman whose critics routinely slammed him for his inexperience, now faces the challenge of governing a city with the eyes of the nation upon him. Mamdani has pledged to implement a number of policies, from a $30 an hour minimum wage to city-run grocery stores, and that he has no way of paying for without support from the New York State Assembly and Governor Kathy Hochul, who campaigned with him down the final stretches. The fact that he likely won't receive that support did nothing to deter voters, though. Some 2 million New York voters turned out to vote in this election, and the largest turnout, this was the largest turnout since 1969. More than 735,000 New Yorkers turned out for early voting, and that's a record turnout, by the way, according to CBS News. Mamdani came under national scrutiny for his calls to globalize the Intifada, criticism of Israel and Hamas sympathies. He has let's call it complicated relationship with the New York Police Department, having called to defund the police at one point, and he was elected in large part with the help of first-time voters and New Yorkers who have lived in the city less than a decade, according to ABC News. Now, critics say that electing Mamdani will cause a spike in crime and anti-Semitism incidences. Cuomo, whose mayoral campaign was an attempt to salvage a legacy tarnished by his mishandling of the coronavirus pandemic and allegations of sexual harassment, carried most of the city's Jewish vote. Mamdani supporters touted the socialists' willingness to buck the Democratic establishment, though at least one Mamdani voter said that he would have reservations about his chosen candidate if he were Jewish. One group that by and large, oppose Mamdani, bus drivers who fear a world in which the mayor-elect eliminates their fares, which is exactly what he ran on, free busing. So, yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see how this Marxist runs things there in New York. The New York Contagion Research Institute, or the NCRI, is a nonpartisan research institute leading the field of cybersocial science and discipline that studies how technology and psychology and social and society interact in the age of algorithm influence. So it was really interesting. A piece that they wrote said that she called him her son. In Queens, campaign posters showed Zohran Mamdani grinning between a circle of Bangladeshi aunties, women who said they were turning out every neighbor they knew. They knocked doors, made phone calls, and spoke of the mayoral nominee as one of their own. But behind those family photos lay something else entirely. The organizer leading those aunties, in air quotes again, Kazi Forzia, was also a longtime collaborator of Bangladeshi revolutionary figures and vocal proponent of Islamist Maoist ideas. Yep, according to a report published ahead of the election in the New York Post, were these claims. The report reveals that what appeared to be organic neighborhood enthusiasm was, in fact, a coordinated mobilization routed through American nonprofits and foreign aligned networks. It was a carefully orchestrated campaign, largely shaped from abroad. At the center of this campaign stood Zohran Mamdani, a candidate whose charisma and polish and digital fluency gave his movement the sheen of an authentic urban resistance. And the campaign's marketing brilliance made it appear spontaneous, even inevitable, a national phenomenon born from grassroots energy. Yet over the past year, three forces surreptitiously converged beneath the surface of the Mamdani campaign: foreign money, foreign propaganda, and foreign revolutionary ideology. A fleet of activist American nonprofits became a delivery system for foreign influence. Authoritarian regimes weaponized information platforms against American voters in a global laboratory of hidden persuasion. Independent analysis show that networks manipulated encouragement to summon foreign audiences to Mamdani on Instagram. By the end of his campaign, fewer than 50% of his online engagements from viral posts came from American users, a complete reversal from the clear domestic majority at the start. On TikTok, content favorable to Mamdani and hostile to independent candidate and former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo surged 55% beyond organic reach. These are not abstract concerns. They are measurable distortions of civic reality across American digital network, made to masquerade as public life. On the ground, the pattern was identical. The networks that secured Mamdani's victory were not organic immigrant coalitions, but extensions of foreign political movements. Drum, that's D-R-U-M, Drum, and its affiliate, Drum Beats, claimed credit for mobilizing 150,000 South Asians and Indo-Caribbean voters, a 13% surge in Bangladeshi precincts and 11% among Pakistanis, with nearly half of all registered Bangladeshis voting. 5 leading organizers were linked to the Hakuk-i-Khalik Party, a Pakistani socialist party modeled after the revolutions in Cuba and in China that collaborates with numerous entities backed by Neville Roy Singham. Independently, drum and drum beats have also worked closely with Singham's beneficiaries over the years. What looked like grassroots turned out was a foreign-aligned political operation routed through American nonprofits. Singham is a billionaire, now living in Shanghai, and long identified by the New York Times and NCRI as a CCP asset for foreign influence. His flagship nonprofit, the People's Forum, bankrolled with more than $20 million in Singham-linked funding, is currently under investigation by the White House and Ways and Means Committee in the House for alleged foreign agent activity and misuse of tax-exempt status. Now, the forum became Mamdani's unofficial campaign hub, hosting his rallies and strategy sessions, supplying organizers and media staff, and aligning its messaging with his own. Many of his core campaigners emerged from its activist network, and within this ecosystem, Singham's niece, Elisa Singham Goodwin, launched Jews for Zoran, coordinating with forum affiliates to shield the campaign from criticism and shore up a crucial constituency. Through this nexus, financed in Shanghai and operational in Manhattan, a CCP-aligned financier provided Mamdani with infrastructure, personnel, and ideological cover. In the vacuum of American ideals, foreign powers found opportunity. They studied our divisions, learned our moral reflexes, and spoke the language of our disillusionment better than we could ourselves. The Mamdani campaign was the result. They learned that our nonprofit could be weaponized, our technology repurposed, and our compassion exploited as a tool for control. Through the Mamdani campaign, Marxist ideologues, Islamic movements, and CCP proxies built in New York an unparalleled infrastructure, an operating system for influence running quietly inside the American experiment. And if they can make it here, they can make it anywhere. So I thought that was really interesting because it really shows you that it's not all just dumb voters, right? It's not all about that. That there was definitely a lot of foreign influence, particularly when it comes to China and those type of areas, that really, I think, made a really big difference in this New York City mayoral election. But that wasn't the only election that happened on the 4th. The New Jersey gubernatorial race has been called, and it was for Democrat Mikey Sherrill. Quote, New Jersey, it is the honor of my life to earn your trust to become this great state's 57th governor. I promise to listen, lead with courage, and never forget who I serve. That's what he posted on X. Well, Sherrill overtook Republican Jack Catanarli, who also faced off against outgoing Democrat Governor Phil Murphy in 2021 and narrowly lost. The polls showed that, according to Fox News, that it wasn't really all that even tight of race. There was some speculation that he was coming up in the polls, Ketnarly, but he continued to gain momentum in the last weeks of the race, but was unable to best Cheryl. And heading to Election Day, registered Democrats cast nearly 300,000 more ballots than registered Republicans by the way of early voting. The surplus was apparently too much for him to overcome on Tuesday, a day riddled actually there with bomb threat hoaxes at polling places across the state that caused confusion and delay for voters. Notably, there are roughly 850,000 more registered Democrats in New Jersey than registered Republicans. Cheryl's campaign largely tied the Ketnarly to President Donald Trump, arguing that she'd shield residents from Trump's policies. The Democrat had former President Barack Obama campaigning for her over the weekend, and Obama similarly made the campaign about Trump as well. Ketnarly, who was endorsed by the president, ran to repeal New Jersey's so-called sanctuary state measures, which would work to protect illegal immigrants from deportation. He also ran to block mails from female sports, and boost parental rights, lower property taxes and energy bills, and end soft on crime policies like cashless bail. So New Jersey decided, no, we don't want those things, and they decided to, go the other direction. But again, I mean, we're talking about New Jersey, okay? You're talking about 850,000 more registered Democrats there than Republicans. But in Virginia, Democrats are back in control of Virginia for just 4 years after Republican Glenn Youngkin shocked the political world by winning the gubernatorial mansion. Democrat Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger was declared the winner by most major decision desks within just an hour of the polling closing. Spanberger was favored to win the race over Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. The former U.S. representative led Earl Sears by between 7 and 15 points in 4 of the late polls released on just the day before on Monday, according to Real Clear polling. The Spanberger for Spanberger, it definitely showed that she could flip the state back to blue. Obviously, it become a red state. Well, I mean, really is a purple state, but now it has a Democratic governor. Spanberger had a few fundamental advantages over Earl Sears. As a Republican, Earl Sears was disfavored from the start, as the Virginia's governor's race rarely goes to a member of the same party as whoever won the White House the previous year. And this is actually a trend that's only been broken once since 1976, believe it or not. Virginia has been declared a blue state before Youngkin won over former Governor Terry McAuliffe in 2021 in an election that was driven by parents' outrage over what was happening in Virginia schools. In one Loudoun County school, a sexual assault carried out by a skirt-wearing boy was covered up by the administrators, who actually carried out punishments against the parent of the student victim. President Donald Trump also remains unpopular in Virginia, having lost the state in the 3 consecutive presidential elections. Spanberger spent much of her campaign running against the White House incumbent rather than taking Earl Sears on directly. Spanberger also had a heavy advantage in ad spending over Earl Sears. The Democrat and her allies spent roughly $50 million on ads ahead of Tuesday's contest. In contrast, Earl Sears and her allies spent about $25 million. Quote, there's more than a 2-to-1 spending advantage, Spanberger over Sears. And at some point, it's just hard to come back from that amount of political spending differential. That's what Signal polling founder Brent Buchanan told Morning Wire ahead of the election. Earl Sears appeared to get a residual bump as scandals exploded further down the ticket involving Democrat nominee for Attorney General Jay Jones. We will talk about him because this was really interesting as well. Democrat Jay Jones prevailed over incumbent Attorney General Jason Maries in Virginia. A shocking end to a race upended with revelations that Jones had fantasized about murdering his political opponents and his children. Jones cruised to victory along with Democrat Abigail Spanberger. The Democrat victories come after a campaign that was upended in October when National Review reported that Jones had texted a Republican state lawmaker in 2021 that if he had 2 bullets and Adolf Hitler, Pol Pot, and the state's top Republican in a room, he'd shoot the Republican twice. He said he wanted to see the children of then Virginia House of Delegates Speaker Todd Gilbert die in their mother's arms because it would help him politically. That's what he said, and he wasn't kidding. He was questioned, "Are you kidding about that?" He said no. He reportedly also said that he hoped that police would die for similar reasons. On Tuesday, the story shifted from Jones to everyday Virginians, and did they agree with him? Did they find the rhetoric permissible? Well, 52% of Virginians said yes, that they agreed with him. So they found it permissible, that's okay. I'm going to vote for that guy. The Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Ghazala Hashmi, was at 55% of the vote. So only about 3% appeared to be Democrats who split a ticket because they did not support Jones's violent hatred. So, in fact, in one pre-election poll, 3% of Democrats said Jones' comments actually made them more likely to vote for him, while almost all of the rest said that the comments didn't bother them enough to make them vote for the alternative. It's really kind of shocking in many ways, but it looks like Democrats will have will have full control of the 3 statewide offices plus both chambers in the legislature, even though the state is evenly split. In that 2021, Morales won with 50.4% of the vote. The revelations were a black mark on the idea of early voting. Here, get this. Thanks to a 45-day voting window, pushed by Democrats, of course, using coronavirus as a pretext. Some people had already cast their votes by the time they learned that Jones's murderous fantasies were out there. Jones was also convicted of driving 116 miles an hour and performing his community service at his own PAC, something for which he is now actually under investigation. After the texting scandal broke, Jones received especially vocal backing from the state's Black Caucus, which dumped millions of dollars into his race. Jones felt no remorse for his comments until recently, as last month, when he blamed Donald Trump and Morales for his text messaging, calling it a smear. And he was vaguely more apologetic after Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic candidate for governor we just talked about, put pressure on him as he threatened to bring down the whole ticket. But Jones is the son of elites. His father was a Virginia politician and judge, while Morales' parents fled communist Cuba. In Virginia, most criminal prosecutions actually fall under the auspices of county prosecutors who are independently elected, but the Attorney General's office has jurisdiction over key areas, including election cases and corporate wrongdoing and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of the big stories of the week as far as the election goes. You can kind of feel maybe a little bit down about some of that, but really, when you think about it, these are blue states. These are blue cities. These are areas that Democrats and liberals should win. Now, there's some big time concerns when it comes to people like Mamdani. We'll talk a little more about him in coming upcoming podcasts, but you have a full blown Marxist that is Islamic terror supporter. Just so many things about this guy, and you're going to elect him, who's never held another job in his life. Has lived off of his parents' coattails and was a failed rapper. Is now the mayor of New York. But anyway, we'll talk more about that later. And just know, these are areas where these people should win, right? Well, let's move to something a little bit different and maybe some better news. The far left outlet Teen Vogue will no longer operate as a standalone publication, with Condé Nast announcing plans to fold it into its flagship digital brand, Vogue.com. The News Guild of New York and Condé Union both condemned the move, which reportedly led 75% of the staffers being laid off, including the entire political editorial staff. Yeah. They also complained about who particularly lost their jobs. Quote, management plans to lay off 6 of our members, most of whom are BIPOC women or trans, including Teen Vogue's politics editor, and including the trend of laying off at Condé disproportionately impacts marginalized employees. This is a statement from the union. The Vogue business team said in a letter that this transition is part of a broader push to expand the Vogue ecosystem, and claimed that the new merged version of Teen Vogue will remain a distinct editorial property with its own identity and mission, per the deadline. But anyway, basically, the Teen Vogue has been such a bad influence on teens, and particularly teen girls, and it's kind of nice to see it really kind of go away. Another kind of interesting story in the area of celebrities is an NFL star is about to face his toughest opponent, the legal system. Yeah, Antonio Brown. You've probably heard of him if you know anything about NFL football. He shined for years as one of the top wideouts. That's a receiver, one who catches the ball in professional football, and is back in the United States to stand trial for a shooting that happened in Miami earlier this year. Brown was extricated Thursday from Dubai and is now booked at the Essex County Correctional Facility in New Jersey, per booking documents. Now, a warrant for an attempted murder charge was issued earlier this year, according to the WPLG in Miami. And authorities said that at the time that Brown was believed to be overseas. So guess where the U.S. Marshals went? They went to Dubai when they found out that that's where he was. The attempted murder charge comes from an incident that happened May 17th at a boxing event put on by popular streamer Adin Ross. At the event, Brown was allegedly seen in a fight with multiple people while holding a pistol and chasing someone. The former football player claimed that he's innocent. And before Brown's legal troubles, he was one of the most prolific players in the NFL. He played 12 seasons, mostly with the Steelers, Pittsburgh Steelers. Brown completed a season, competed on season 22 of Dancing with the Stars, and he finished 4th on there. You may have seen him there. And so yeah, I mean he's back. He's not a high character guy. Let's just put it that way. um, he's had a lot of different things that he's brought on himself. In recent years, Brown has made headlines for multiple arrests, including for assault and failure to pay child support, among other charges. I mean, just kind of one of those things where you kind of know, you kind of. This is why character matters when it comes to people, right? Well, let's conclude with something kind of interesting and a bit light and funny. Officials, I guess maybe funny, I don't know. I guess depending on your humor. Officials for Maine's largest healthcare provider have apologized for sending their condolences to hundreds of people who are still alive. A computer system error caused Maine Health officials to send letters of condolences to more than 500 living people to inform their next of kin of their reported deaths. 531 to be exact. Maine Health sincerely regrets this error, officials said in a statement. They said that it was caused by a mistake in a computer program that generates estate vendor letters, according to ABC News. And UPI reports that there were no medical records that listed the individuals as dead, and the computer program has since been corrected to prevent future occurrences. So if you received a letter, if you're one of our listeners in Maine there, you received a letter of condolences, I would love to see that. That would be interesting. And you can always send a scan of that to me here at the podcast. And of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening. This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.